Discipline, it's something that we know that we have to be able to trade effectively. We have to be able to manage the emotions that just absolutely are part of the trading environment. And we know that. We know that you're supposed to plan your trade and then trade your plan. Yet, the vast number of traders, once they get into the trade, once they start anticipating the trade, what they discover is that discipline breaks down. And what I want to suggest to you is this, is that it's really more about understanding discipline and what discipline really is and what it could be versus the way it's applied now. So what I want to do is I want to start saying, the way we look at discipline, we want to think of it as something willpower. We force our will upon the emotion. Okay? And what we discover is that works for a while, and it certainly may have worked in other endeavors in your life, from business to athletics to corporate life. And it was that willpower that allows us to subdue the emotion. And yet, when people get to trading, something strange happens. Is suddenly, the more that you resist that emotion, the more that it persists. And the more you push against the emotion, the bigger and stronger it gets. And what's common in trading is that suddenly, out of nowhere, the emotion that you could so easily control in another environment becomes uncontrollable. It becomes the 800-pound gorilla in the mind. And you're going, what happened? What happened? It's so easy. I could use the willpower. I could deny the emotions. I could push the emotions away. And yet there they are, and they've come back stronger. What we're beginning to realize is the paradigm that you use for emotional discipline needs to be rethought. And this is what I'm going to suggest to you, is that emotional discipline does not come out of force. It comes really out of observation. It really comes to, what observer are you? What mind are you bringing into the mind of trading? Or better said, what mind are you bringing into the performance of trading? And you're going, something, when I experience an emotion, most likely you have learned how to push the emotion away or to willpower it out of existence. And yet, in trading, what you discover is that emotion starts growing and growing and growing till it hijacks the rational mind. What we're saying is, what if the emotion needs to be treated differently? And mostly I'm talking about fear and greed, or my favorite, lust. That's when you jump into trades and you go, why did I do that? As you begin to realize that you can watch the emotion if you know what to look for. You can see the emotion when it first starts, when you can do something about it, and you can interrupt it before it gets on a head of steam and takes over mind. But you have to start realizing, wow, something, my brain and my mind is not really just some static instrument. What it is it's a community of rival emotional programs, that's the brain, that are duking it out. And part of those programs is fear. It has a place at the table in the brain, a place at the table in the mind. And by denying it, by resisting the fear, you're not listening to it and you're not mastering what the fear is trying to tell you. What happens if you had a sense of discipline in you that was really, instead of about willpower, about force, it was about being able to manage the intensity of an emotion? What if it were about being able to manage the stress of a moment, where part of that management was just not force, it was also self-soothing, or what we might call self-compassion? What if you began to realize that, the emotion can grow, and I can resist the emotion, I'm going to force it into my will, or I can start recognizing the emotion is biological. It takes over mind. My job is to learn how the emotion works. And what I realize the emotion has triggered, and let's say greed or fear, and it's beginning to grow, you have that urgency to jump in a trade, or you have that fear to get in the trade, or you have an urgency to jump out of a trade, or you have a fear that the profit's going to be taken away from you. Instead of resisting that emotion, what if you were to turn toward that emotion and calm the emotion down? You get at the fear, and then all of a sudden you say, well, this is really about self-soothing. I can calm the fear down and I can get at to the very core meaning. And friends, this is where discipline, understood the way most trading is done today, really falls apart. Is that this is about the emotional brain, which basically looks at the thinking brain as just some appendage that happened to show up along the way. When the emotional brain feels the emotion, it simply wipes out the thinking brain. There's just a level, bam, that happens. What we're saying is something very different. What if you were to say, you know something? The emotional program, discipline, what if it were in place and it were about soothing the emotion first, then listening to the emotion and going, you know something? Am I prepared for this, and can I manage the stress of this moment? Can I maintain order in the midst of this stress? And you're going, you know something? That's the whole key, is discipline is not about forceful management. It's about maintaining order of stress. It's about maintaining the order of the mind as it engages uncertainty. And what you learn very quickly is that when the brain encounters uncertainty, it automatically, by default, triggers to vulnerability. That vulnerability triggers automatically to fight flight. Your job in discipline is to recognize what the emotion's trying to do, and then being able to counteract it and to be able to move it forward and move it back into its place and decide, you know something? In discipline, what we really want to do is not just control fear. We want to change the emotional response that the brain and the mind has to uncertainty. We already know what the default programming is like. What we're looking for is to be able to change, okay, when I'm coming upon it, instead of just trying to fight the emotion, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use discipline of a ruler. I'm going to say, who needs to show up in this moment? Discipline does, impartiality does, self-calming does, and the courage to face the fear does. Those are the elements missing, friends. They're very doable. You can learn to do this. You learn to regulate the emotion, then you learn to observe, become mindful of the emotion, and then you become an intelligent user of emotions. And what you discover is you don't have freedom from emotions. No. What you have is freedom of emotions. Uncertainty in trading is going to happen. It really depends on which emotional mind shows up. In discipline, what you're doing is you're ordering the mind that shows up to meet the certainty. You're not trying to make the uncertainty go away. Huge difference. This is training, friends. It's not an event where you go, oh, there's this one little skill that if I learn it, everything's fine. The Holy Grail appears to me. No, what you're doing is you have to change. You have to adapt what evolution has given us. It's given us a brain and a mind that reacts primitively from survival instincts to uncertainty, from uncertainty to vulnerability to fight flight. What we want to do is through discipline, internal discipline, finding the discipline inside you to maintain order under stress, and saying what we want to do is, in maintaining order, we want to bring a different emotional mind to the game. We're not going to change the uncertainty of the game. We're going to change the mind that comes to execute. And that's where the discipline comes from, to say, I can't make emotions disappear, but I can order what emotions come to engage the uncertainty. You want to learn more? Watch more of the videos, read the article from this month, take a look at the book, get a free ebook, start really exploring at the website how you go about training the emotional mind to be able to do with this. Come and visit us. It's been great, and my hope is that all your trading goes well. Meanwhile, get trained.